Welcome back. Over 4 billion naira has been lost through electronic fraud, and that's according to the Central Bank of Nigeria. The banks have continued to invest in securing their electronic banking system, but the fraudsters have continuously come up with ingenious ways to evade getting caught. Now, processes of adjudication and prosecution has been highlighted as one of the major impediments to dealing with fraud cases. But what are the issues and roadblocks to justice in issues of financial crime? Let's talk to George Etomi, Pioneer Chairman, MBA Section on Business Law and a commercial lawyer, to get his perspectives to this. So good morning to you.
Good morning,
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, when I had this conversation with you yesterday,
yes.
It was almost like it's been a long time coming, and
sure.
It's a good thing that, you know, the courts have actually been brought into this. But let's start with looking at the issues in financial crime investigations.
Yeah. Well, the responsibility in the first place for financial crime investigation lies with most of the investigating agencies. You have the EFCC, you have the Special Fraud Unit of the Nigeria Police, and they must generally work, as it were, with other supporting agencies to get information that they require. Now, because financial transactions are becoming increasingly sophisticated, the means by which these investigations are done must also become sophisticated, otherwise we'll be lagging behind. And that was what the CJN, the Chief Justice, was alluding to. The methods of investigation lag way behind the advancements we've seen in financial transactions. Consequently, when finally, first of all, it takes a long time for investigations to be concluded. And when finally somebody is arraigned, maybe because there's some uncertainty as to the method applied in using the investigation, they overcharge the person. 200 charges, 300 charges, count charges. And like the CJN said, you have a witness, you must have a witness to prove each charge. Even going through those charges alone take an enormous amount of time. Now, can this be abridged? Yes, it can be abridged. With careful, thorough investigation using modern techniques, you don't, in many cases, more than 5 to 10 charges. Because once you get the substantive offense covered by the first charge, the other supporting charges simply just prop up that first charge.
So whose responsibility is it now for us to, you know, prune down those counts? So that you, because if you have the substantive charge already, there's no reason for you to have the other multiple counts of up to 200.
Yeah.
And like what the CJN says, it's actually a waste of the court's time.
Absolutely.
There are actually other matters that need to be adjudicated on.
Absolutely, I agree entirely with the CJ. And I know in the recent past, the EFCC, for example, has employed the services of very senior lawyers who will now help them. Although in some cases, the multiplicity of these charges come even when you have the senior lawyers with them. But hopefully, the senior lawyers can guide the process a lot better. Because if you do a thorough investigation, you don't need more than 2, 3 charges to nail somebody if you find the evidence. The most important thing is to find the evidence. The courts work with evidence. They can't manufacture evidence. So for all the times that follows some investigations, when it finally gets to court, if the evidence is not there, the court is obliged to discharge the accused. And once that happens, there's another round of hue and cry as though something wrong had taken place. But having said that, it's the responsibility for fast-tracking a lot of these cases does not lie alone with the prosecutors. I see the point that the CJN is saying, but even our courts themselves need to up their game.
Yes.
Because a lot...
You know, because there's actually, you know, this annoyance, you know, with the legal system, that you have a case and then you go to meet a lawyer, and it seems as if the lawyer just wants to continue to stay proceedings. Because looking at coming up with 200 count charge, the defense lawyer will say, and he's, you know, well in his right to say he needs to study.
First of all, I need to go through. I need to go through it. I need to go through the evidence.
But then that's a waste of the court's time. So what now needs to change? Do we need to have specialized courts? Because that was one of the things that was highlighted, specialized banking and financial matters courts. So you leave the courts, the other courts, the magistrate, the Supreme Court and the rest of it, to adjudicate on other matters, but have a special court that will focus on financial matters and quickly try, prosecute, and either jail or whatever it is, or acquit, such fraudsters or people who have been alleged of perpetrating financial crimes.
The issue of special courts didn't start today. If you cast your mind back, when in 1973, when the current Federal High Court was established, it was actually the Federal Revenue Court. And it was designed at that time to look at financial matters, including, strangely enough, money laundering. It had a lot of those things, maritime cases, personal income tax. That was the origin of the Federal Revenue Court. But in 1979, the nomenclature changed to the Federal High Court. But by 1993, their jurisdiction had been expanded. And now they hear practically every case in which the federal government or an agency of the federal government is involved, no matter the nature of the matter, which I think we lost track there. And what is now happening is that some of the most major litigations that go on, battles that go on in court, is over jurisdiction of the Federal High Court and state high courts. So to the extent that that issue continues to linger, I support the establishment of special courts. But then a warning here. Special courts will have to be established by an act of parliament, and in doing that, if you say it must be to try corrupt practices and so many other things, the state high courts themselves also have jurisdiction conferred on them by the Constitution to also look into those matters. So you must have a constitutional amendment that, in a sense, debrieves one arm of the judiciary in favor of another. Now, whether we can go through all that, it's a different ballgame. Then you then go to the next issue of how do you then ensure that the appeal process supports the establishment of special courts, because special courts by their nature are supposed to be experts in those particular areas. But as it stands today, like we find with the Investment and Securities Tribunal, where with other special courts, appeals still lie to the Court of Appeal, still lie to the Supreme Court. So even when the matter is dealt with expeditiously, for as long as those appeals process takes place, you can lose so much time.
Which is the
so
reason
you must
why
guarantee some degree of autonomy to those special courts.
So we're losing time, we're losing money.
Absolutely.
About 4 billion naira was lost to fraudsters. Now, the reason why we don't seem to have so many cases at the courts these days is because of all these issues that you mentioned. And so we're talking about an amendment. Are we? For the processes that will ensure that these guys are prosecuted, these fraudsters are prosecuted, not just for individuals who have been, who have been, put before the ICPC or the EFCC for alleged financial misappropriation and the rest of it. But we have to have a system that shows that, look, whatever it is, you will be punished. There will be a proper adjudication and prosecution for whether you've committed a crime of 1 million naira or a crime of 10 million naira.
Absolutely.
Well, how quickly can we get there?
Well, it lies with your legislature, because the process is a democracy. You have to, the executive has to start with the executive bill, take it to the legislature. They have to do their lobbying. They have to make the case, and then they hopefully have a legislature that will follow them, because the legislatures themselves, remember, they have special committees that also look into these matters. They will come up with their own ideas. It's a painstaking process, but I think we should do it. But having said that, we must have a holistic view of the administration of justice in Nigeria. It's the entire administration of justice system that's crying for help. So much is happening. That's why I said, is it the lawyers? Is it the judges? Is it the prosecutors? Is it the legislators? There is a need to create that nexus so that the desire to help stem corruption can never totally eradicate it. At least that battle is won. Not because no effort has been made, but because we see that all those who should be supporting it key into it. And this, for me, is where we win this battle. Most of the things come from the attitude we express. Otherwise, if you create the loopholes as we see, a lawyer is within his right to exploit a loophole. And remember, you are presumed innocent until you're proven guilty. So no matter what it takes, look at what's going on with the case of the President of the Senate. What's the objection in the Court of Appeal? They're telling you that the Code of Conduct Bureau, which is, by the way, is like a special court, is not constituted in a manner in which the Constitution says it should be constituted. There should be 3 members, but there are 2 members now. And the argument is there is no quorum. But the real question is, how come there are only 2 members? They couldn't find a 3rd member all these years? So some of those things don't have to do with the laws. The laws are there, but somebody has not just taken the action. So it's that mindset, that change we need. We need to get there. Otherwise, I will be within my right to fight with the defense is provided to me by law, if I feel. Because it's a very thin line between an honest battle to fight corruption and the perception that is not being discriminatory. It's just as important. And that's why we lawyers always say that not only should justice be done, it must be seen to be done. So it's important that everybody keys in, but even those in charge of the processes make sure they cover what they should cover. Otherwise,
So,
we'll be back here again next year discussing the same subject.
Yes, but in line with that now, and in line with what we want to see with regards boosting the economy, talking about the banks now,
Sure.
going back to the initial start of this conversation, quick adjudication
Yeah.
is required.
Yes.
The banks don't have all the luxury because they're protecting customers' monies and they're doing so many other things, to ensure that the economy stays afloat. What can lawyers be doing to help banks ensure that the processes, when they do get to the court, are expeditiously carried out?
Good question. My colleagues, I always say that a lot rests with us, and I completely agree with you. And at times it's bothersome when you find that very simple issues. The moment the first, the registrar announces a case, the first thing is an objection, jurisdiction. My lord, you don't have a jurisdiction. And once you raise the issue of jurisdiction, it must be taken. That means the substantive issue is relegated to the background. And you can fight this jurisdiction issue all the way to the Supreme Court. If it takes you 5 years to come back before you go to the substantive matter, so be it. So to that extent, I think lawyers should begin to play it well. Even where there have been practice directives, as the CJN said, that some of these issues of jurisdiction should be taken alongside the substantive case, so that if it goes on appeal, everything will be decided. You still find that lawyers insist that they must be heard on the issue of jurisdiction, and if a ruling is against them, they appeal. It's a right of appeal. So, and the appeal courts, the process, they're all clogged up. It takes you an average of 2-3 years to get a proper hearing in the Court of Appeal. Another 2-3 years in the Supreme Court. So what happens to the substantive matters? Yes, you have a point there. Our lawyers must stand up to. And I think at the last NBA conference, the president made a point. He appealed to the NBA and to the generality of lawyers. We're on a mission for change. You guys must key into it. So I join you to ask that we should be part of it. Because if we all don't participate in this journey, it's going to be very difficult.
Well, Mr. Itomi, I'm going to hold you to that one because, yes, I will be asking you questions again when this comes up. But thank you so much, George Itomi, for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you.
George Itomi is the Pioneer Chairman, MBA section on business law, giving us his thoughts on that issue, roadblocks to justice, issues in financial crimes investigations. Business Morning continues after this. Join us again.